on the soup.
You know what? We're on record. Who cares? Do they really want to hear this intro?
I mean they know to drink water and don't drink and drive.
Don't drink and drive. Yeah. The Bears. There you go.
You know, I mean, when that Chris Carter, isn't that the same exact speech where he tells all the kids to have a fall guy anyways?
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah,
we don't need the intro for this show. This is our Down on the Farm with the Boys. These are our paying subscribers. These are our farm hands. We can the intro. We can the pre-recorded blah, blah, blah stuff. We're getting into baseball. We're talking baseball. It's minor leagues with the Texas Rangers. We're pumped up about it. Tons of stuff to talk about. We didn't think we were going to have anything to talk about, and now we got more to talk about than we actually probably have time to talk about, but we're excited about it. We're going to talk minor leagues. This is Down on the Farm with the Boys, your exclusive content for the Texas Rangers, where we cover all things Rangers minor league.
Isn't it fun? Isn't it fun that we're in like the last week of the season and we've got like a handful of guys that we haven't talked about all season long?
Well, the draft picks are one, and then you've got guys that are making names for themselves. You got a 27-year-old prospect that's like, hey, I guess it's time for me to figure out that I need to play good enough to get to the big league.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about it, man. But hey, look, this is your boy Kev, aka YBK, Kevin Frazier, and as always, my co-host, the 300-pound manimal, aka Bull. Let's do this thing. We got our top 10 format. It's kind of a what we want to
change today, but it's more like, we put together 10 topics that we want to talk about and some players. I mean, the number one is going to be no surprise. Number two may even be no surprise, but the rest of it's just a fun little list that we put together of stuff that we want to talk about. And we want to update you guys on some of these young prospects that you haven't heard about this year that are doing some nice things.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, everybody that's on the list here is because they've been playing good.
Hey, before we start the top 10 list, just wanted to remind everybody, Daniel Flamas.
Oh yeah, give it.
Wins the Dominican Summer League Player of the Month for August. And the Carolina League Player of the Month for August was Julian Brock, who after a really dismal first half of the season and kind of starting to put together his first year of pro ball, by the end of this thing, it's been really good.
So you're saying not every college athlete just comes in like Wyatt Langford and just goes on murders the entire minor league system and then ends up in the pros?
No one does that.
and then plays through the entire season. And then I'm telling you right now, we were talking about on the main show, Wyatt Langford looks like he's got like, he's starting to look like man. It's starting
to feel like Barry Bonds in '88. You know,
I mean, it's like you can tell he can't wait to get up there and hit because he feels like he's starting to get it, and it's like just now he's gonna be at the bit. I think next year to get the season underway and kind of have his coming out party. But again, he was all we could talk about for half the year last year.
You know, it's funny. The Rangers are starting to put some prospects in the big leagues that there's a little excitement about, you know, between Langford and now Jack Leiter, who has really stepped it up these last couple of outings at the big league level. So, you know, there's some excitement behind that. And it, you know, I mean, you're looking at like the idea that CY is talking that Kumar Rocker could pitch before the end of the year with the big club. I mean, these are exciting things for a team that is 70-74 and more than a handful of games out of a playoff spot. I mean, maybe it isn't exactly the excitement that we wanted at the end of the season this year, but it's the excitement that we're getting. And, you know, I mean, we've seen it with Leiter. We've seen it with Langford. We're going to get an opportunity down the stretch to see some more from Ornelas and Foscue, you know, but also Garabito. You know, so there's some guys that there's some excitement around that I mean, Garabito was a guy that mid-season started hitting our radar.
Right.
You know, I mean, before he got called up, we were starting to see him, you know, Double-A Frisco, he's having a really good outing. Garabito's getting moved to Triple-A. Hey, Garabito had another really nice outing at Triple-A. So it was like, you kind of saw it as the middle of the season progressed, and then he made it to the big leagues, and he's been up and down all season. But at the same time, I mean, lots of improvements made by him. And this was a kid that last year at this time was pitching in like a summer league in Venezuela.
Or like Peru. I think he
Or
was
yeah, like not even like Venezuela, like an off South American country.
And leave it, and this is just how baseball go, like leave it to a guy from playing in the Peruvian league to leapfrog a guy that we were hoping to have a year like this, like in Owen White. Like Garabito's having the year we were hoping Owen White would have.
Yeah, and then there was really nothing to say that Owen White next year can't become a viable major league pitcher. I mean, like there's just been a lot of situations this year for him where, it's best to get him outings instead of have him up at the big leagues where he's not pitching at all and he's the 19th or 16th pitcher on the roster or whatever. So overall, I think there's been some excitement. There's been some guys that we've learned some stuff about. A guy that we talked about quite a bit last year on the Down on the Farm show, Jacob Latz. He stepped into a nice situation for himself this year. Bumped my stand there. Yeah, with Ray Charles in here and knocked my. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, we've seen some stuff this year. We've learned some stuff about some guys. We've also learned some stuff about some guys that maybe we didn't think we were going to learn this year, and we got to see a little bit of Cole Winn in the big leagues.
Bright spots from
Cole.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some good outings from Cole Winn. There were some times where he got roughed up, but that's part of being a rookie in the big leagues. And we saw that he does have good stuff out of the bullpen and that he can run it up there at 97, 98 miles an hour.
Hey, listen, one thing we found out about Cole Winn is his stuff can play in the big leagues.
Now it's a matter of figuring it out on a day-to-day basis and going out there and being a sturdy hand. I mean, that's really kind of what we're learning. But I mean, and we got excitement coming because
let me take it from you here because it's a nice segue to our number 10. To our number 10, a couple of players that honestly, especially
on the 40-man.
Yeah, on the 40-man roster. One of them's had a really good season, I think. It hasn't been, lights out, tell everybody about it, get super pumped. But, the line has been pretty good from Dustin Harris. And then Sam Huff, I mean, he still has the pop. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I think he's hit 30-something, probably has hit as many doubles as Sebastian Walcott has this year, but just hasn't been able to break through. And these are two guys on the 40-man that we're just kind of like, what are the Rangers going to do with these guys? They're going to have to do something with them.
Yeah, I don't know the exact answer.
Right. Right.
I really thought last year after the Rangers allowed the couple of guys, Garver and the fun kid that went to Cleveland. Austin Hedges. So after they let those guys go last year and don't re-sign anybody, kind of after those guys are gone, I kind of thought that Sam Huff would get an opportunity to back up Jonah Heim this year. And then they went with Andrew Kisner, and Sam Huff should have gotten an opportunity to back up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like Kisner's season was awful. It was a waste of an option on Huff. I mean, I don't know. Not necessarily based on the fact that Huff has, been under 700 ops most of the season at Round Rock. And, you would expect a guy that's major league ready to smash at Round Rock, but he does have a ton of doubles. He's drove in a bunch of runs. So there's been bright spots for Huff. I think the thing with Huff was he was so highly touted after he had those big seasons in A-ball where he hit 27, 28 home runs, and then they put him in the futures game and he goes out there and hits a jack in the futures game. And, the Rangers we get to see him a little bit in 2020 because everything went to hell that year. So we got a chance to see him and we saw some of the pop and he was, mildly okay, I guess, so but yeah, I mean, now we're 5 years later and we kind of don't know what the exact tell on Sam Huff is. I mean, he got the extra option from the 2020 season. And now here we're going to go into 2025. He'll be out of options. So he's a pressing matter. I don't know. He may not even get tendered a contract with no options, but I can't imagine with the potential that he has at the plate, with the pop that he has, that they're just looking to just outright him. I mean, they've DFA'd some guys that I didn't think they'd DFA this year, and Sam Huff's hung around. So,
Right.
I mean, he's been on the 40-man now for 5 years. So I'm not sure. Dustin Harris, on the other hand, I think, he's probably going to get an opportunity to fill maybe that Travis Jankowski role.
Yep.
Where he's a pretty good defender. He can play both corner positions, and he's been playing quite a bit of center lately for Round Rock. So I think they're kind of like getting him ready for a fourth or fifth outfielder role, and being kind of a cheap guy on the roster next year. That I don't know that he'll make the roster. I mean, the Rangers probably do have some ambition to go out and sign a bat this offseason just because of how everything kind of went to hell as far as their lineup this year. So they want to have some bats that
a lot of going to hell.
yeah.
Sam Huff went to hell. Dustin Harris is going to hell. The Rangers lineup went to hell.
It seems to be the tone of 10. The tone of 10 is going to hell. But anyway, just a lot of things that are going to have to be shaped up this offseason for both of those guys. Dustin Harris has never played a major league game, and he's already used 2 options. And it'll be a third before he even, unless he makes the team out of spring next year. But I can't see a situation where he doesn't at least go up and down a couple of times next year. Even if he does make the squad. I mean,
well, okay. So I'll give you my just whatever.
Thoughts.
So my thoughts about Sam Huff. Number one, Bochy is a catcher, and I feel like he wants veteran catchers on his team. I mean, you just that shows because he's not ever had really. Jonah Heim didn't get any real runway to mess up this year. Like he as soon as he started messing up and Kisner wasn't doing the deal, it's like get him out, bringing this other guy in. Like his playing time, boom. So like I would think that possibly Bochy probably wants veteran catchers on his team. That's probably something that he values as a manager. And I think he's probably looking at Huff as like, hey, look, you know what? Like I'd rather have this thing overbaked than underbaked. If I'm going to bring him in here and he's going to have an everyday spot on a playoff team, on a World Series contending team, I need him at a certain I need him mature. I want to see him a full season. I want to see how he does, because the thing about Huff is he hadn't played more than 60 games. I think over the last 2 seasons, like at AAA. So I'm pulling up his numbers. I was looking at that. So he played 68 games in 2023. He played 63 games in 2022. So, again, I'm not sure what Bochy.
And he was shuttled back and forth quite a bit in those years. This year, he hasn't been shuttled at all.
Right. And I think that maybe he wanted him to be in one spot for the whole year, given that we didn't need him at any point. Really, I mean, I guess you could debate that. So I'm thinking both of these guys have been kind of put in a spot where they just are going to play outright. And it seems like they have had chances to bring both of them up, and they didn't. And there has to be a reason for that. And so I would say the reason is not because they don't believe in these guys. They don't think they're any good, and we're ready to just dump them next year. I think it's because they think that maybe that this is just, there's really no spot for him. Why bring up Dustin Harris to be a 4th outfielder, 5th outfielder, when he could be getting 400 at bats at AAA?
Yeah, and you sign Jankowski back, so you put money towards him. You've got Langford, Tavares, Garcia that are all going to get time out there. You've got to find time for Duran and Smith and those guys to play whenever Seager and Simeon and Young and Lowe are all healthy.
Yep.
So it's a tough gig to have a ton of Major League Baseball players.
And let me jump real quick. Sorry to jump in on you here, but also when it comes to Harris, he played 53 games in center, 45 in left, and he also played some third. So it looks like they're doing something with him. Like they wanted to see him probably get some time at center field, see how he really was out there. They looked at him at third base, so that means they're probably considering him for like a utility role. Mm-hmm. And I think they just probably said, "Hey, let's let this guy get some at bats. He's let's see what he does next year." We're only on number 10. So
no, and just kind of a quick bow on those two guys. Yeah. I don't think that there's anything wrong with either one of them as baseball players. I think it's just more, like you said. I think Sam Huff probably could be. Let's get him a full year at AAA. Let him play as often as possible. And we saw it. He kind of lost time to Andrew Knapp at AAA when they were trying to win ball games. And Knapp played exceptionally well at Round Rock, and that's why he's, on the Giants right now playing in meaningful Major League Baseball games.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, the next guy is one of the Rangers draft picks. I'm trying to get a first name on him for whatever reason. I just wrote his last name down, but the Rangers 14th round pick, a catcher. Last name is Hartle. Of course, when I need
was
to
it Brady Hartle? I can't remember if it
when was. I need to pull this thing up for the internet.
Yeah, my MILB isn't working at all tonight, so I just put my computer down. But yeah, Hartle, he's a 21-year-old catcher from the Kansas Jayhawks. Played Big 10 or Big 12 baseball the last handful of years.
Ben Hartle.
Okay, I knew it started with a B. I thought it was Brady for some reason.
Benjamin Hartle.
But yeah, Ben Hartle. Kansas. I think he was a 14th round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken.
14th round pick.
And you know what? He showed up at Down East ready to play.
He sure did.
Yeah, he came out smashing.
Yeah, he came in and took over cleanup.
Yeah, and on top of that, he came over and took at bats away from both Julian Brock and Jesus Lopez, who both had been playing quite a bit better in August as well.
Right. He came in. He's only come in his 13 games with Carolina. He only came in, has had 11 in 33 at bats. He's got 11 hits, 9 walks, a home run, a double, 7 runs batted in, 5 runs scored, a stolen base from a catcher, and he's slashing 333, 500, 455 for a 955 slug. I have to give him his flowers right now because, anytime a guy comes in, a 14th round pick comes in and takes over your low A cleanup spot because he 9 walks.
Anytime a catcher's hitting, you'll take it.
Well, it's like 9 walks. It's one thing if a guy just comes in hacking and everybody, they don't really haven't figured him out yet.
Wyatt Langford last year.
Right. Or some of these guys that come in hacking and they just got free swings and then they start to figure them out and then they start swinging over breaking balls and they start finding out that they were just up there hacking at fastballs. And then once they started figuring them out, well, this guy's not hacking at everything. He's out there walking 9 times.
Yeah, no, and then you said in 36 at bats, so that's 45 plate appearances, a 500 on base percentage. Nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that.
I'll take that every time.
Yeah,
and he's slugging enough. What you said, 450, something like that.
Right.
And again, this is a guy that probably is still waiting on some power to come in, and he's getting used to going from an aluminum bat to a wood bat, and and the IA or the A jump from college is quite a bit.
We're going to talk about it in a minute when we talk about Hickory, but. Now, he was no slouch in college. I wanted to jump in. Sorry to just interrupt. I rude. But in college, his senior season at Kansas, which Big 12 baseball that's like big time baseball, man.
Pretty solid, yeah. Lots of great pitchers that come out of the Big 12 as well.
So he slashed 309, 460 with a 599 slug. His looks like his junior season. Or maybe less. He's still pretty young guy, man. And 11 homers, 11 doubles. So we talked about him when we talked about the draft, but now that the rubber's meeting the road with this cat, nice start for Ben Hartle coming.
Yeah, and anytime you've got a 21-year-old catcher that's going to probably start next year at Hickory in A, and then work his way up and be back with the Spartan Burgers or whatever they are there at for the Down East team next year. So, yeah, no, I mean the catching position at the A level right now between Brock, Hartle, and Jesus Lopez is kind of exciting. I mean, there's 3 actual prospects that have, started their careers pretty well at the A level.
Yeah, and we already talked about Brock winning Player of the Month, and he's hitting so good. While Hartle's playing catcher, he's playing DH.
Yeah, vice versa.
Well, a couple of nights ago, the Hickory Crawdad on Saturday the Hickory Crawdads blew up for 9 runs, and it caused me to kind of look into this lineup and just who they had, batting for them. So I put them as our number 8 for our number 8 is the Hickory 1 through 6. Now, every single one of these players on here is on our Down on the Farm with the Boys top 40 prospect list. All 6 of them. Their leadoff hitter was Cam Cauley. Darren Dreiling was the Rangers' second round pick. Batting second. Sebastian Walcott, their top prospect in the organization, was batting third. Malcolm Moore, their first round draft pick in 2024. Arturo Diesla, the YouTube phenomenon who has just blown up the minor leagues this year, hitting moonshots. And then Yaison Morabel, who has consistently been on our top 40, was batting 6th. Every one of those guys got a hit. They had 13 hits, 4 walks in this game. Morabel hit a moonshot, but these guys blew up for 9 runs. But I thought it was pretty cool to see 6 of our top 40 prospects all in the same lineup on the same night, blowing it up. It was pretty cool.
Well, we knew at some point that Hickory was going to be fun to watch. We just didn't realize that they were going to wait till the last couple of weeks of the season to be that team. But the pitching has been fantastic all year at Hickory. It's nice to see the lineup kind of catch up a little bit. So overall, man, I think when you're talking about that 1 through 6, and you're talking about Cam Cauley, who had some injury problems, struggled a little bit this year. Dylan Dreiling, who's still just weeks into his start with the organization, and then you've got Sebastian Walcott, who hasn't faced a pitcher this season that's younger than him. And then Malcolm Moore, who, again, just been with the organization a couple of weeks, but they're highly touted, well thought of, first-round draft pick. They believe that he's going to be good enough behind the plate to stick at the catcher role. And then Diesla has just been phenomenal all season long. No matter where they've put him, he's done nothing but perform and hit. And then Yaison Morabel is a guy that we've been super stoked on, just kind of waiting for him to hit his stride. We saw him take some strides this past spring with his body and starting to look more like a grown-up instead of a 16-year-old boy, which, in his defense, he was. Right. But you're starting to see these guys develop. You're starting to see them mature. I think Anthony Gutierrez was probably in the lineup as well. So you're just kind of starting to learn about what these guys have, and you're starting to get a feel for them. But they're all still extremely young. Morabel, maybe 20, 21 tops. And Diesla, a young guy, 21, 22. And the same thing with all of those guys at the Hickory level. They're a bunch of young guys, and Sebastian Walcott's 18, 17, 18 years old, playing way above where he probably should be. But you know what? By the end of the year, he figured it out. He led the league in both hits and doubles. And I don't think there would be anybody that would look around and say, man, I can't believe this guy didn't face one pitcher his age or younger all season long.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna hold off on my comments about Sebastian Walcott because we have an entire segment. Now it's been a minute. There was a time where we couldn't go through a show and not talk about Jesus Lopez, and that time has been a while. It feels like it's been a while, but Jesus Lopez has started to come back around. I mean, another guy. You talk about young guys. I mean, he's 19 years old. Talk about a
Well,
guy.
and I mean, think about when you were 19 years old, I mean, and traveling and doing all the stuff that we were doing in the wrestling at 19, and think about now being from a different country and coming over to North Carolina. It's not like they put these kids in like great spots, you know. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like try and be a kid that doesn't know how to speak English in North Carolina. There's
Mm-hmm.
one thing being a kid like that in Dallas, that you'll have somebody to talk to. But in North Carolina, you know, I mean, and not just North Carolina, but rural North Carolina. You know, so yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing. I mean, and you're talking about a 19-year-old kid that probably up until moving to the Dominican Summer League and being, you know, stateside these last couple of years, had probably never been away from his home in Venezuela. Probably never, you know, I mean, so you got to give these kids a curve. And on top of that, I mean, when you're playing like non-organized ball in Venezuela, you're not catching a ton of games every year and all of that stuff, you know. I mean, and especially not at the level that they're asking from him now.
Right.
So for him to start the season strong, finish the season strong, sure he had some lulls, but overall for a 19-year-old kid trying to catch at the A level, I thought he did a really good job. And him and Julian Brock were bright spots to me on that Down East squad almost all year long. And then to have Hartle come in and be a bright spot at the end of the year, it's really a nice situation to have three catchers that you actually like.
Yeah, and hats off to the Rangers scouting department for pulling these guys out of the woodwork. Brock, I mean, because think about it, like all three of these guys, well, two of these guys were not highly touted guys, but guys that we both, once we heard about them, like, I mean, it's
Well,
possible. Obviously, Jesus Lopez was a kind of a
he
highly
wasn't
touted.
really a highly touted international prospect. He just developed a little bit better.
Yeah, and so in his defense, I mean, he barely played in July, so about halfway through July, he didn't play from July 14th to August 27th. So
Yeah,
really
he
not,
had a stint on the IL.
yeah, so not a big body of work. But coming into September, he had a multi-hit game just a couple nights ago, and he's starting to put some stuff together. And seeing him come back and getting some playing time, I just thought it would be good to mention him, especially considering he had his first multi-hit game in probably 3 months a
Yeah,
couple
yeah,
nights
with
ago.
the
So,
injury, having some troubles. Yeah, no. So I mean, but again, the prospect is still there. The prospect
oh man,
status definitely for sure. The Rangers, yeah. Again, we're talking about three catchers that we actually like at the Down East level or at the A level, and you know, I mean, when you look and you start getting higher in the system, you don't see those guys. I mean,
yeah.
you've got Huff, who was a prospect, but when you look past Huff and the organization, it's a bunch of old guys kind of hanging on to baseball.
Yeah, playing, taking care of pitching staffs. Well, the
Yep.
next guy, speaking of old guys, he's old for a minor leaguer. He's a guy that we've talked about on and off. Has over 2,000 at bats in the minor leagues. Has consistently hit pretty good, and I think this year has been no different. Big right hand, or not really that big, but a right-hander, Blaine Krim. Another good season at AAA. Nothing really to complain about in terms of his in terms of the bat. I mean, back to back pretty good seasons. I think last year he slugged over 500. This year he's hanging right around that same spot. And with the Rangers needing help, needing a DH and not having that, it's possible that maybe a guy like this could be a guy that you look at. Who knows? But Blaine Krim, another good season, has had a really good kind of. I think he struggled a little early on, and I think we were kind of going,
Yeah,
maybe
he did.
it's
He did have a prolonged slump early in the year,
yep,
but he did. I mean, there's never been any question whether the man can hit or not.
Well, especially in July where he hit 453, 561, and 656.
Yeah, I mean, there's never been a question of whether Blaine Crim can hit or not. It's been, can Blaine Crim do it at this next level, and can he do it enough to where you justify him being just a designated hitter because he doesn't really play? I mean, he plays first base at AAA, but he hasn't ever really shown a glove over there. So it's just, he's one of those guys that everybody knows he can hit. Now it's who's going to give him that opportunity at the big leagues to hit and see if he does it at that level.
Well, on September 7th versus Las Vegas, Blaine Crim only went 3 for 4. He had a double, 2 homers, and a walk, and he had 10 total bases in one game. So nice game for him, which is part of the reason. Again, he had a heck of a week overall. I mean, anytime you have 14 total bases in a week.
Hell, if you want to go all the way back to November of 2022 when we started this show, I mean, Blaine Crim was a guy that we talked about at the DH first base position as a guy that we know he can hit. I mean, whether it be during the season at AAA, whether it be during the winter in the Dominican or wherever he decides to go. I mean, Blaine Crim can flat out hit a baseball. And now it's just an opportunity to see if he can do it at the next level. I mean, I feel like Blaine Crim is the type of guy that next year that, I mean, he makes that move to a different country to play baseball.
Yeah, if he doesn't get a crack at it, I feel like he probably owes it to himself.
To go to Japan or Korea and see if he can do it at that level enough to get someone interested in him back here.
I agree. Well, let's talk about
it. I mean, it really feels like, I mean, the Rangers are not interested in Blaine Crim at all. It really feels that way. And I mean, I'm not taking shots at Blaine Crim because that's not what we're doing. It really, I mean, he's put the same numbers up at AAA now for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed his status with the club at all.
No, not even when the team is in dire need.
For a guy that can hit, yeah. And it felt like when they were at that time where they were in dire need for a guy that hits, Blaine Crim wasn't hitting at the AAA level.
That's a good point. So timing is everything for this. Speaking of good timing, we've talked about David Davalillo a few times already, and he just keeps having good games. I mean, had another good week.
He's not going to wow you. He's not going to wow you with any of his stuff, but he's on the edges at 91, 92. He's got decent off speed, and he breaks it pretty good. So, I mean, he's starting to get guys out and starting to strike guys out at a higher clip as well. So You're starting to see him learn how to pitch a little bit. And, he's starting to get on that radar of a guy that could be a big leaguer.
Yeah, and what you brought up the strikeouts. That's kind of been the I would say like the narrative or the story with him is early in the season. We talked about him. We liked him, and he'd had a few.
He was going out, getting you 5 innings, but there'd be 1 or 2 strikeouts.
Yeah. He was only averaging like 6.5 a game
per 9.
His walks were way, per 9, but his walks were way down. He's one of the only guys consistently that had his walk rate below 2. Yeah. I mean, he really has been like that all year. But all of a sudden, and I don't remember what exactly, it was probably a couple months ago. It had to be because you don't turn your strikeout ratio from 6 to 9 over 2 weeks. Like all of a sudden the K started climbing. And, the K rate was already high to begin with. Coming into 2024, he had a pretty good K rate up to this point, but it seemed like he was doing something. And then once he got the call up to high A Hickory, it jumped up to 11.5, and the walks went down. So I feel like what you're seeing is a guy that's starting to figure some things out.
Well, and I think he's also finding out that his breaking ball is good.
Yeah.
Like that he can get guys out with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because something's happening with this cat because the important numbers are starting to really.
Well, and he moves it and he keeps it on the edges too. That's one of the things that when you see his like snippets of at bats that you catch on minor league baseball, it's a lot of him hitting a corner, him breaking it off.
Well, here's the other one. These are like my two big ones. I love K's as much, strikeouts as much as anybody. Obviously, I had probably a 25-minute absolute bro crush on Paul Skeens probably a couple months ago. But so I love the big shot strikeout guys. But like these days we see 11, 12 Ks per nine everywhere. Like we see it everywhere, man. Everybody has guys like that all through their system, but not many teams have guys that are averaging under 1 home run per nine and under 3 walks per nine. Not many guys out there like that. And those are the guys that when you see who's making it to the big leagues and who's being successful, whether bullpen or starting pitching, it's the guys who aren't walking a ton of guys and who aren't getting freaking jacked out of the ballpark all the time, giving up 3-4 run homers. Giving up 3-run homers and putting a couple guys on base and giving up a homer, striking out 10 people. And it's like, yeah, but dude.
Well, and yeah, I mean, and there's also for every guy that you see with a 10.5 to 12 strikeouts per nine, you're also going to see 6 to 7 walks per nine as well, yes. Or over 5 for sure. So when you see a guy that's got an 11.5 strikeouts per nine rate, and then his walk percentage per nine or his walk rate per nine is somewhere around 1 or 2, you've got something there, and that means that he's not afraid to be in the strike zone and he's not afraid to work with his stuff. And I think that's what we've seen from Davio since he's moved on to the high A level. And not that we didn't see good stuff at the low A level, because it was good enough to get him that promotion, and he's been fantastic. I mean, a lot of times when you see guys move from the A level to the high A level, they get beat up a little bit. We saw it with Bratt. We saw it with Winston Santos. So we've seen it before, but not the case with Davio. He's been really good.
One other thing with him too is a lot of times when we see guys not giving up a ton, like not giving up a lot of home runs, we do see them walk a little bit more because they're not giving in, right? Davio does both. Yeah. He's only in his 104 innings this year at both levels, he's only given up 3 home runs in those 104 innings. So he is a hard guy to make hard contact on, with only 27 walks to 110 strikeouts. So again,
well, and I think a lot of that is not leaving anything right there in the middle of the plate.
Man, I agree.
Be a strike thrower, but it doesn't have to be middle.
Well, okay, let's keep moving.
Yeah, keep moving. Who knew? I thought we'd be done by now, so we're doing great.
There's too much stuff. There's too much good stuff to talk about. Next. So the Rangers don't have a ton of lefties in the system. We know this. Okay, they're trying though. They're drafting them. They're pulling them. They're starting to pop up everywhere. Well, one guy who has really just kind of burst on the scene because he was an 11th round pick back in 2022. Big kid, 6'5", 200, probably more than 220 now. Cole Drake has somewhere in there. He turned a corner, and apparently he started turning that corner at Down East, and he hasn't stopped turning the corner because a really good start from him he's been really good since he moved up to the AA level. Striking out a ton of guys, Ks per nine are through the roof. Walks are a little bit high, but not crazy. I mean, he's under 3. Home runs per nine is under 1, and he's at 13 Ks per nine. Big lefty. Rangers need a guy like this.
Yeah, and he's really developed this year. I mean, it was a guy that we talked about him last year when we were coming up with left-handed starting pitchers in the organization, and it was a guy that he is a junior college guy. So he didn't really hit radars until this year whenever he really took off. And I mean, it was like the Pringles commercial, right? Once you pop, you can't stop.
Yeah.
Because I mean, once he started striking dudes out, he hasn't stopped since then. And I mean, I mean, his makeup is great. I want to say he's, I mean, what'd you say he was 6'4", 6'5"?
Yeah, he's a big
6'5",
kid.
yeah. I mean, he's got that stature, and I think he said 225, but there ain't no way seeing him in the bullpen out there at Frisco that he's 225. I would say probably more like 260.
Wow. I love those kind of guys, man. I think they're so
He's
intimidating.
built a lot like Kumar Rocker, if you ask me.
Yeah, a big lefty. And I mean, when you're a big lefty like that, like you don't have to throw 100 miles an hour from the left side, man. Like we saw the Rangers, the Anderson guy the other night, he was throwing 89.
Well, Anderson and
Cody
the other
Bradford.
kid, Garrett Hardy or whatever.
Yeah, that long funky name. But even Cody Bradford.
And Gary, whatever his name was. Yeah, I mean, so when you know how to pitch and you're able to break it off, and I mean, you can get lefties out at will as a left-handed starter, you're gonna go a long ways. And I think Cole Drake, I mean, the ceiling has become definitely rotation guy in the Rangers organization.
Well, and he's at the AA level, and then coming right behind him was another guy we've been real excited about, Skylar Hales. He pretty much just blew through his time at the Sally League. Now he's up at the Texas League, and he's blowing guys away there as well.
Yeah.
Big guy, too, another 6'4", 220.
And again, he ain't 220.
Yeah, big draft.
He's probably like 235 or so. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, walks per 9 or under 3, home runs per 9 or barely. He's given up 1 home run all year this year. In his 41 appearances, he's only given up 1 home run. So he's a guy that strikes a lot of guys out, doesn't walk a lot of guys. And again, just imagine you got Skylar Hale, you got Cole Drake out there at 6'5", 260 or 250, blasting you from the left side. Then they bring in the righty at 6'4", 230 or 240, and he's blazing as well. This is what the Rangers
need. Both guys throwing 96 plus from both sides of the plate. And I mean, Hales is up there at 100 almost every pitch. I mean, he's 98 to 100. I've seen it as high as 101, 102 from Skylar Hales. So, I mean, next year, don't be surprised if you see Skylar Hales at the big league level in the bullpen for the Rangers. He's an older guy already. He's going to be 24 next year. So, if the stuff is as good as it's played at the Texas League this year, I mean, he'll probably start next year at Round Rock, but I mean, it won't be for long. He's getting pretty close to Major League ready, if you ask me.
So moving up, our top 3 guys that we're going to talk about. Number 3, really has probably been the best hitter in the Rangers organization all year long. I mean, when you really look at just the total numbers, I don't think anybody's been a better hitter for this team than Alejandro Osuna. The numbers for sure. I mean, we're going to talk about Walcott in a second. We're talking about numbers plus potential when we're talking about Walcott. 2 guys that probably, I think Osuna comes up to like Walcott's like sternum.
Nipples. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, no, he's a small guy, but he has a lot of pop in his bat. He doesn't just hit singles either.
Yeah.
He's in the gaps. He's hitting balls off the wall. He's got home run potential. I mean, he's probably never going to hit 30 or anything like that, but he's probably got 10 to 12 potential out of the center field hole, which is perfectly acceptable, especially if he's got Gold Glove caliber defensive skills in center field. So the Rangers they're going to be running into a problem here in a couple of years that it's not a bad problem at all, where they're just kind of overwhelmed with center fielders.
Well, I would say the pop is what's been the big thing for him this year. Up to this point, he's kind of been a gap guy that hanging around like double digits. But this year, the 16 homers, 22 doubles, 5 triples, 17 stolen bases. And then on top of that, to go along with that 287 average, he's got a 360 on base and he's slugging 500. Just doing everything. And like you said, plays all 3 outfield positions. He's got speed and he's a left-handed hitter, which Rangers need that too. You know, a guy that
Yeah.
can go out there and hit.
Well, with on base potential too, with
Yeah,
real on base potential. Because I mean, when you're 5'6", you can do things with the zone other people can't do.
110%.
Yeah, I mean, and that, but
Yeah, of course I do.
but really, at the end of the day, when it comes to Osuna, he seems like the type of guy that he's a baseball player.
Yep.
You know
He's
what I'm
only
saying? I mean,
21 too.
and he's a legacy. I mean, his brother pitched in the big leagues. So it's not unfamiliar territory for his family. But watching him at Frisco, because you know me, I like to sneak up to Frisco as often as I can.
Yeah.
There isn't really the flaws in his game are more like, will he develop power being small? Will he, will that come in? Like the question's never been, can he hit? Is he going to play a good outfield? I mean, he can play all three defensive positions well in the outfield. He's got a big enough arm to play right field. So it's not like he's, just because he's small that he doesn't have true potential, but he really does. I mean, he's a guy that at this point, I mean, there's no other choice but to call him a dude,
Yeah. And how many players move from Sally League to the Texas League, and just jump in like they've been that
like
are
they were
better.
supposed to be there. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
like better, better.
guys that we talk about that did that are guys like Wyatt Langford.
Yeah, because
Those are the guys that you talk about doing that. But Osuna, I mean, there's something about his game too that you really like. Like just watching him play, and he's got that that heart and hustle that they talk about. They give an award out for it every year.
Right.
So, I mean, I think he's that type of player. Just put whatever his brother's indiscretions were in the big leagues and off the field behind. Don't. As long as you can get past letting that bleed over and let him be the kid that he is, man, he's got something. He's got something, and he's a good little ball player. A good little ball player. He has, he kind of reminds me of, just like scrappy wise, is like kind of like what you saw from Julio Bourbon in the minor leagues, that you never really got a chance to see at the big leagues because I mean, he never got an extended portion because they always went back to Hamilton because they wanted to win.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know, and that kind of like jolted Bourbon kind of out of the league, and but that's the kind of player he is, where he's like highly special.
Yeah, and I think because he's a legacy guy, I think that's one thing that will help him a lot, is that those guys always get a crack. They always get a shot at it. He's only 21. If he keeps doing what he's doing, there's no doubt
he's way ahead of schedule, if you ask me.
He's gonna be a guy that gets a crack at it, and I would love to see that. All right, now we go from an overachiever kind of cat to a couple of genetic marvels, with Kumar Rocker coming in as our number 2 topic player. I mean, he's been the best minor player, since he's been in the minor league.
I don't know, I mean, when I think of Rangers prospects that were on his level in the course of the last however long the Rangers have been a franchise, it's like Kevin Brown.
Yeah, I don't know anybody. I can sit here.
I guess I mean, maybe with Kevin Brown was at Oklahoma City and stuff, that's how I can't think of anybody. I mean, the Rangers have just never had anybody like this. I mean, the comparison I feel like there is Paul Skeens. I mean,
that's more of the kind of the area that you're talking about. He's just, the only issue with Rocker was health. And if he's healthy and he's pitching, I said, it's going to be really fun to see what he does against big league hitters.
And we're talking about, I mean, he hasn't been healthy since he was 19 years old. Now he's 24 years old, and he's got the stuff to kind of get there. And I'm excited. I haven't been this excited about a Rangers prospect, I mean, really ever. I mean. And what's crazy is I was like, what are they doing when they drafted him in the 3 spot? I mean, until the Porter thing came along, I was like, what are they doing? And I mean, they knew what they were doing. I mean, Kumar Rocker is he just wasn't healthy. We'd never seen him healthy. We haven't seen him healthy since he was a freshman at Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
And
man.
I mean, he had Paul Skeens buzz about him as a freshman at Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm gonna tell you because he's just a pure power pitcher, man. And not only that, but like a ground ball pitcher. Like he's not just a go up there and throw it hard guy.
I mean we're talking now what he's been back 10 starts or so. I mean, he just hung his first breaking ball.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, and I'm kidding, you know, of course, that, like, I mean,
Right.
there have been others that have hung a little bit, but that was really the first pitch that he's just hung that was right there. That, I mean, how dare you not smash that ball out of the ballpark if you didn't, you know?
Yeah, yeah, there's really nothing to say except the excitement that we heard that Chris Young said that it's not out of the question. And why wouldn't it be? Like,
yeah, I mean, I'd love to see him and Leiter pitch on back-to-back nights this year.
What do the Rangers got going on right now that's like so important that they can't get this guy?
Well, and I really, the question is, what better options do they have anyway?
I mean, you rush a guy like Wyatt Langford to the big leagues for the same reasons you do this. You do the same reasons. There's nothing left for him to do except like regress.
Yep. No, and look, I could talk about Rocker all night long, but at the end of the day, I mean, he doesn't have anything left to prove in the minor leagues to me. So if you're whenever you're ready, CY, I'm ready.
Yeah, bring him on. I'm ready. Unless you're doing it for, for I don't know, man. I don't know what reason you'd have at this point. So from 6'5" genetic marvel, like looking at the guy, man, looking at him in videos, you're like, geez, this dude is a freaking monster. Well, this guy, we saw him live, man, at the Futures game, and his body frame just alone, like he stood out amongst the top prospects in baseball.
Yeah,
he stood out. Just the frame alone stood out, and that's
Sebastian Walcott. I mean, again, I think the best thing to emphasize talking about Sebastian Walcott and what he's done this year is he's the youngest guy in the Sally League. He has been most of the year. I think he probably has been overtaken now. But, I mean, this was his 17th season. It isn't like this is his, I mean, he's playing at an advanced level for any 17-year-old. Most kids his age graduated high school in May. He was 200 at-bats deep in the Sally League.
Right.
So you have to remember that. You got to remember that, those early struggles. Okay, so who was the best high school player? I mean, like there were hardly any high school players drafted in the first round this year.
Right.
None of them went to the Sally League. All of the kids that went to the Sally League are guys that are, first and second round, kids that have played 3 years of college.
Yep.
So yeah, for a kid that should have graduated high school in May, I think he's done all right, because by the time he hit summer league in June, July, and August, the kid was on fire. And I mean, he put together a tremendous season at the Sally League. He's going to end up leading the league in both hits and doubles. You saw like real power off of his bat at certain times. I mean, he had balls that he hit 114 miles an hour off the bat in games for home runs. There's just so much to be stoked on this kid for. I think the biggest question is does he stick at shortstop? But he's going to play shortstop until he needs to move off of it. He kind of reminds me of Fernando Tatis Jr. in that sense.
So I'm going to bring up an interesting fact about him. How many like 3 triples in a season? Like 3 triples in a season is a good number.
Yeah.
He had 3 triples. He had 3 triples last week.
His eye popping, right? Like my eyes got real big.
He had 3 triples last week. He had 3 triples in a week, man. I mean, I don't know, man. Yeah. Those are the kind of numbers. Those are the kind of things that players like this do, though. You know what I mean? You hit 3 triples in a week in September. Like Like these guys do stuff like that. That's
and I think the biggest takeaway I took away from him, seeing him this year, live with Hickory's broadcast, and then seeing him in person at the Futures game and hearing the ball come off of his bat comparatively to a lot of other guys that are top prospects in the game. I think that there's a lot of people that underrate what kind of prospect he is because he was playing up so high. I think if he would have been at Down East this year, he wouldn't be the 37th best prospect in baseball, according to MLB.com. He'd be a top 10 prospect because he would have hit 350. He would have he would have been on base at a 400 clip, and he would have slugged 500 plus at the Carolina or in the in the Carolina leagues. So it was a lofty expectations from the Rangers, and I think he exceeded them. And to see him get sent up to Frisco to play in the playoffs this week, that's good stuff.
You want his he's played 164 minor league games now. You want to hear his 162?
Yeah, give it to me.
This is great. 620 at bats, 92 runs scored, 159 hits, 44 doubles, 13 triples, 17 homers, 73 runs batted in. Here's my favorite stat of all of them: 75 walks, and he's slashing 38 stolen bases, and he's slashing 256, 340, 352 with a 792 OPS. He's not even 19 years old yet. And he
won't be 19 until the second half of the season next year.
Cannon for an arm, can play anywhere on the field.
I don't think there's a position besides catcher that I wouldn't feel comfortable with him playing.
There it is. There it is, man.
Hey, fun show tonight, Kev.
Ooh,
fun show for us kind of putting it together on the fly because I've been, I don't know, preoccupied. I'm not going to lie.
Man, my kid has had sinus and fever all week. He's not slept. Today he took a nap because he could finally breathe out of his nose. He took a 3-hour nap today. I felt like it was the first time my kid has slept like in a week. And when he doesn't sleep, we don't sleep. Don't forget, last week we're in Michigan.
Yeah.
This time last week I'm just getting back home.
Jet lagging, yeah.
Yeah, and he started school 2 days, and we went the Ranger game on Labor Day, so that wasn't like a chill day at all. And then we go start school, and we haven't slept. We haven't slept since the last time we probably saw each other on the show. So,
well, for some reason, my phone will not do anything well with StreamYard. I went to hit the record button to start the show the other day, and it kicked me completely out of the program. I wasn't going to hit Tony up after midnight for another passcode. So, I think most of the people, this is where the real people that listen to the show are at. So, we're sorry about stuff happens. And
but we're back, man, and it's been a fun show. I feel like you got more minor league content tonight.
And somehow, you're getting 59 minutes of.
And you got Ben Hartle. Ben Hartle made the show tonight. Like
14th round draft pick from this year, catcher. We got to talk about Julian Brock, a 7th round draft pick.
David Davalillo for 5 minutes at least. So
we got stuff. Hey, and these are kids that a lot of people don't know anything about them just yet. Cole Drake, he's been fantastic all year, and somehow he's missed a lot of our top 10 lists.
Yep. So, well, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. We will be back next week. Minor league playoffs will be underway for Round Rock, so we'll be talking about that.
Frisco.
And I'm sorry for Frisco. The rest of it will be, probably just kind of wrapping it all up and letting all these stats kind of settle and tell you who's the top player at probably top.
Maybe we'll do the best player, our MVP for each team. For all 7 teams. Yeah,
MVP and our Cy Young or whatever, best pitcher, best position player for each team.
Let's do that. That'll be a great topic. It'll be a bunch of fun, and we'll have 4 guys from each level to talk about.
Love it. Well, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week for the 300-pound manimal. This is your boy Kev. This has been Down on the Farm with the Boys. And you know what we're not doing? We're not doing an exit video. We're just going to